Hi everyone, and welcome to this very special conversation on transparency in the fashion industry. I'm really excited to be here today to discuss transparency in the fashion industry and particularly this new Higg Index Transparency Programme. Firstly, I'd like to introduce our fantastic panel. So we've joined today by Amina Razvi, Executive Director of the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, Jason Kibbe, CEO of Higg, Pascal Brun, Head of Sustainability at H&M, and Brad Boren, Director of Innovation and Sustainability at Norrona. Welcome, everyone. So firstly, I'd like to start by asking Amina if you could give us a brief introduction to this new transparency program that's launching and what it means for the fashion industry.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Emily. It's great to be here and great to be joined by my colleagues for this incredibly exciting milestone. So yesterday, in partnership with Higg and with our members, we launched the first phase of our transparency program for publicly sharing data on a product's environmental impact, starting with material content. And we're really excited about this program because we believe that it has the potential to really revolutionize the way people shop by giving consumers more insights into the impacts of the products that they buy and the companies that they buy from, and ultimately helping them make more informed decisions. The program provides a consistent and credible way for brands, retailers, and manufacturers to share standardized sustainability information of their products across a variety of impact categories, such as water use, greenhouse gas emissions, and fossil fuel use. The program has been built on a decade worth of tool development of the Higg Index, which measures social and environmental impacts across the value chain, as well as years of consumer testing and insights. We're launching today, or yesterday, with a couple of our brands, such as H&M and Norrona, who are here today on a select group of products. And we're focusing right now on evaluating the environmental impact of a product's materials. And we're starting with materials because they're a significant contributor to the impact of a product. And by focusing on material data first, the program will start to address one of the most pressing environmental challenges that the industry faces and really empower consumers to vote with their wallets on the issues that really matter to them. And this is just the first phase of the program. It's going to expand to include both manufacturing and corporate responsibility data over time, but it's a really important first step towards a unified approach for industry-wide transparency and something that the SAC and our members have been working on for the past decade. And ultimately, we think that this has benefits for everyone. You know, it benefits consumers because it addresses increasing demand from consumers to know more about the impacts of the products that they buy and the companies that they buy from. We think it benefits business because those that are able to meet this demand, we believe, will have a competitive advantage and really be able to differentiate their products in the marketplace based on a comparable standard. And finally, it benefits people on the planet by spurring innovation and collective action towards not only more sustainable products, but more sustainable ways of producing those products, and ultimately decreasing our impact as an industry and helping to address systemic issues such as the climate crisis. You know, for those of us, we were chatting earlier, who have been working towards this vision for the past 10 years, it's really exciting. And there's a lot more to come, but we believe this is a really important first step.
Amazing. And as you say, this has been in the works for a while. So Jason, I wanted to hand it over to you to talk about, you know, what difference does this data and technology make for brands? And also, I guess, you know, obviously the Higg Index tool has been, you know, been in development for the past decade or so. But in terms of being for brands to be able to present this information in this kind of, you know, standardized and quite easy to understand way.
Oh, thank you. And it's great to be here. And it's really nice to be celebrating this with some folks that have been working on this for a long time. Now, as Amina mentioned, it's really critical that this data and this kinds of programs where we're sharing the impact of products be consistent, be credible, and be scalable. And that scalability, you know, from anyone from a company like Norrona, who we'll hear from in a moment, from Brad, a smaller company, to really giant companies like H&M that produce millions and millions of products. that there's really only one way you can do all three of those things together, and that's by putting it on a digital platform. And we put this on Higg so that we can actually draw from what we have is the largest pool of data about sustainability in the industry, first about materials, and then in the future about factories and about brand performance. And we bring this together so that we can create these product sustainability profiles. And that is only something that you can do digitally. It's only something that you can do with large sets of data. And what I'm really excited about is that by having this digitally and not just going strictly through the route of a seal on a hang tag, that we're actually going to be able to innovate. We're going to be able to use this data, going to be able to use the insights from the companies like Norrona or from H&M and from the industry efforts like the SAC to really understand how do we shape this data and this information in a way so that it's impactful and actually shapes consumer behavior.
And Jason, I also wanted to ask you a bit about what this can do in terms of accelerating change in the industry as well, to have this data. And apologies, my dog's being a bit noisy in the background, but yeah, in terms of accelerating change, what can this data and information do?
I think this is a starting point. And I think what we would say is that this is not the end, and this is not the perfect data set. This is not the only data set, but this is really a way for consumers to start to engage more deeply with the impacts of their products. And when you're engaging with those impacts and understanding, here's how much carbon my purchase of this shirt actually contributes to the climate crisis, I think it will change the way that people behave and buy. And I look forward to seeing how consumers and others start to use this information to go much further with things like gamification and looking at their total impacts. And I think all of those are things that we can start to build on to actually change behavior.
And Pascal, that's something I wanted to ask you from a consumer's perspective in terms of, how much demand is there for this kind of information from consumers, and how helpful is this new program for consumers so they can understand the impact of the clothes that they're buying?
Well, what I would like to say is the demand is huge. I think we see an ongoing demand from our customer. They want to know a bit more where the product is made, how it has been made, under which condition it has been made, and they want to know more about the brands as well that sells those products to them. But I would like to come back also to why transparency. I think transparency is key. It's key to build trust for our customers, but it's also key to build accountability for the brands, which is crucial to be able to transform the industry. And then when it comes to the Higg index, well, by putting for the very first time an index on our products, this will enable our consumer to take meaningful decisions, to take informed choice. But to be able to do that, I think that index needs to be clear, easy to understand, but also credible. And that's the last point I would like to mention as well. It's how helpful we can make it credible. So here it's really about, to make it credible, it has to be, first of all, third-party verified. It's a key element in how we build the Higg index. It has to be also developed by industry experts, industry that knows the standards, the latest standards available in the industry. And last piece, but not the least, it has to evolve over time. The standards has to be able to evolve to the latest standards available. It has also to be able to basically broaden itself to further standards, like bringing on top the environmental facility standard or the social facility standard, but also the brand score and performance. And then the last piece, it has to evolve to match consumer need. It has to evolve to match consumer demand as well. And this, I think, it's basically the work that SSE has put in the last 10 years in developing, building what we are offering today to our customers.
Yeah, and I wanted to turn over to Brad and ask in terms of the value of this initiative for a smaller brand like Norrona. What sort of value does this bring, and how helpful is this tool for a smaller brand?
Well, first of all, I think the initiative's greatest impact is for the consumer. So regardless of the company size, I think just going from assumptions to facts is huge. So it also provides more security when we say we're providing recycled material or GOTS certified cotton, organic cotton. They're kind of understanding that the whole value chain is being followed. So I think that's absolutely critical. I think for us, it's also a good place where we can start to explain or tell about our suppliers and actually the whole supply chain and how how many people are involved in making this more preferred fibers. I think it's really important that we're able to be as transparent as possible. And one of the main reasons we decided to be part of the launch is to make sure it scales down as well as up, so that small companies, it's not too complicated for small companies. And I think, as Jason said, making sure that data is a really important part, that we first of all have a single source of truth where we can all look at it and understand what's happening with our decisions. And then also making sure that it's automated, because small companies need to have much more efficiency.
Amazing. And I wanted to maybe dig in a little deeper in terms of what this actually looks like for consumers in terms of, the seal and the scorecard. And maybe that's something, you could maybe discuss a bit more in terms of kind of the dual layers of this program.
Sure. So the sustainability profile, and I think Pascal and Brad can also talk a little bit about this, but it actually lives on a brand's online store. So when you go to the H&M website, it serves essentially kind of like a scorecard, maybe a little bit like a nutrition label. So you'll actually see when you click on the product page for, let's say, a cotton t-shirt or a cotton dress, you'll actually see the environmental impacts of that, whether it's looking at greenhouse gas emissions or water use, et cetera. And the seal is a little bit different. It's more like an at a glance, a quick way for a consumer to be able to filter or sort products and understand, whether that product has a lower environmental impact. It's maybe a little bit more like an organic, like a USDA kind of organic label that you might see at a store. So they both have the same underlying, methodology. They both have the same kind of process in place. They are just different ways for a brand or a retailer to be able to express that on their website. And I think, Brad and Pascal can talk a little bit maybe about how that actually shows up on their websites as well.
Well, I can definitely add on to that. I think, I would invite everyone to go and check. It's a quite of interesting customer journey. You click on the product and you have a first layer that tells you a bit the performance of the material. Then the second layer will help you to understand, based on different criteria, a bit further the impact on the material. And then you have a third layer that goes to SSE page as well, where basically you have all the detailed information of how the score has been built, calculated, and so on. And it has a full experience and a full journey, and it's quite customer friendly. Again, it's clear, easy, and trustworthy, and which is basically based on all the customer testing that we have done. This was the primary requirement to make a successful launch of a standard online.
And I also think that what's really important is, again, this is the first step. So the products show information which they didn't actually show or wasn't verified before. So you could say something was organic cotton, but this is actually showing impacts. So I think that's really important. And this is the first step, and that, eventually we'll have, let's say, our brand and retail module scores on there, and we'll have be able to share our facility environmental modules from our suppliers. And so all this will connect, and then those that are really interested can go as far and deep as they want. And I think that's where it starts to get really exciting.
Yeah, and just for people watching who might not know, the seal basically certifies that products are 12.5%, have a 12.5% improvement on those 4 criteria. Is that correct? Just so that everyone is aware.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, one important differentiation though, it's within a category. So it's not for comparing, wool to polyester or something like that. It's about actually, if you're looking at conventional cotton versus organic cotton, it's within that specific material fiber type already.
Yeah, yeah. So it's more of a like for like comparison.
Exactly.
Correct.
Amazing. And a lot of you have mentioned that this is, the first step and an important milestone, but there's still places where you want to take this further. So I don't know who wants to, anyone can kind of chip in here, but in terms of expanding this beyond materials, I wondered kind of what are the next steps for that.
Sure, I'll start maybe, and then Jason, if you want to add in and chime in here as well. But the Higg Index was always designed to assess social and environmental performance end to end, right? So the suite of tools actually looks at how products are designed, where and how they're manufactured, and then also I think, as Pascal and Brad have alluded to, kind of brand performance. And ultimately, we believe it's really important for consumers to have that holistic understanding of a product's impact from material content to how it's produced to the brand that's producing it. And so over the next 12 to 18 months, we'll be looking at how we layer in additional information, such as facility level data from the facility tools, as well as brand and retail performance or corporate responsibility from the brand and retail module as well. So this will continue to evolve and expand over time, but it is, we believe, a very important first step in this journey towards greater transparency and much more holistic transparency of a product for consumers.
I would add, I think it's what Pascal, the way that Pascal described this, where we have something very simple provided with something that's combined with something very rich. The ability to go deep and share deep information allows us to look at even including things that maybe aren't yet included in the Higg Index and other data sources eventually as well. So I think we see the product sustainability pages as essentially a deep place where consumers can get really rich information about the products that they're buying, and we're really excited, especially to focus on, as Amina mentioned, the release of some of the other great data that we've been collecting for many years, such as factory information. There are 15,000 factories that filled out their assessments last year, and scaling up as we scale up social information. All of that's really exciting and starting to become available to put on these profile pages.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I wanted to open up another question to the floor in terms of how crucial is it to have a standardized system like this, offering not only transparency, but also, as Pascal mentioned, accountability from brands, and a standardized system that can be applied across the whole industry as well. Is this kind of a turning point and a real game changer for the industry?
Yeah, maybe I'll jump in, and Pascal, and others feel free. But I do think it is, one of the ways that I've described it, like when I'm talking to my kids, it's almost like a nutrition label, right? Can you imagine if you were to go into a store and see 18 different labels out there? As a consumer, you wouldn't really have a good understanding or a sense of kind of what's in that, and be able to make decisions based on, different parameters, for your own health. And so having a standard is critically important. And that's actually why the SAC, that's why we began this work in the first place, right? Is to ensure that you could actually start to compare things apples to apples, that there was a standard for assessing social and environmental performance across the value chain, and that companies could really start to, not only communicate that, not only assess, kind of their own performance, but actually be able to communicate that out to the marketplace, and be able to drive decision making, whether it's, business to business, or, with business to consumer. So we believe it's critically important for there to be a standardized way to assess this information and also be able to communicate that information out to the marketplace.
And one other key thing is it's using standards that are in the industry that are recognized. And I think that's really important, whether it's a textile exchange standard or a GOTS standard. So you're using standards that are known, and this chain of custody, I think, is also really important, that we're able to maybe take things from the farmer through to the development of the materials, all the way through to the brand. I think this is really powerful again. So people are secure that they're getting what they're actually thinking they're buying.
just would like to add as well on that. I think, I mean, having a unified standard and one standard for the industry has been probably the primary reason why we joined the SAC at very early stage 10 years ago. This is key, this is crucial. This is what will basically enable comparability for consumers, for stakeholders, but for everyone in general. And comparability is what you need to benchmark. And there is another element that we have not really talked about, but from the manufacturing side, it will help to reduce the audit fatigue, which has been one of the biggest bottlenecks in driving further sustainability performance. Can you imagine being a supplier, having 10 different buyers with 10 different standards, 10 different audit protocols? This will not lead the industry forward. So having one standard is how you enable the industry to move forward as well.
And I think also one leading thing is that transparency leads to improvement. You know, we see that we learn from more, you know, we learn from each other, we learn from ourselves, we learn from our mistakes, and we can share those mistakes, and then we move forward and improve. So I think that's a really key thing. And if we're all focused in the same direction, it's much more easy for the suppliers to understand, for the consumers to understand. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, unfortunately, we're at time now. So I think it's been a really interesting and rich discussion about, you know, the importance of transparency in the fashion industry and also accountability, the kind of benefits that having a standardized system like this can really have in terms of, you know, providing more information for consumers and also creating change within the industry. So thank you so much for all your insights today. It's been a great discussion.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Emily.
very much.